that gonna fit everyone?
Yeah, easily. 12 customers total.
How do they turn a profit?
$12.50 a head, that's how.
What, are we eating a Rolex?
It's one of his classics.
Anya, my first question for you is a little complicated, but I was fascinated by the Margot Slowick dynamic. It really does feel like a very stressful game of chess, like a tightrope walk of Margot really always needing to say the right things to him. So when you're playing those scenes, what are some of the top priorities you need to be keeping on your mind when considering the fact that literally the tone of her voice, every single facial expression she makes is going to be scrutinized by this other person?
Completely. Interestingly enough, I wonder whether it was the characters or it's just the way that Rafe and I approach acting. We found those scenes very comforting and quite warm. Like every time we were in it, we were always really enjoying it. And I think it's because at the end of the day, Margot and Chef Slowick recognize something in each other. And it's not an easy intimacy to pin down, but it's a kinship. And so it is almost, you're right, it's he flickers his eyebrow so she kind of mirrors or she shuts down a little bit more. And that dynamic was so much fun to play, specifically with Rafe, because he's a very generous actor and every time we went for a take, it would be different and we would always be there to catch the other one. But I will say, as somebody who's not very talented in being passive-aggressive, I really enjoyed being passive-aggressive in this film. It was fun.
I feel like that's a good real-world skill to have.
Well, I mean, I've received a lot of passive aggression, but not really. Why am I looking at you? I'm sorry. Not from Nick, but yes, it was fun to be passive-aggressive towards Voldemort. That was great. I enjoyed it.
Bringing up the the playfulness and also the heavy improv on the film. Is there anything Rafe did in one of those really tense conversation-driven moments that caught you by surprise? You had to pivot and adjust to it?
Oh, entirely. It didn't make it into the film, but it's one of my favorite moments. He just started to sing and clap and got us all to get up and follow him out of the restaurant. And I think at the time it was single tear, Margot, trying to hold it together and trying not to shake, and he just starts singing in my face, really loudly, and I was like, whoa, okay.
I really hope that's a deleted scene we have access to one day.
This is fun. Okay.
All right, Nick, so for you, what do you think Tyler's obsession with Slowick is coming from? Is it actually pure admiration for someone who's exceptional at his craft, or is there something kind of lurking underneath that?
Yeah, I think it's admiration, and then it's wanting to be accepted, it's wanting to be recognized in a similar way. I think he's got a lot of male fragility in him, and he wants to be great like that. He wants to somehow attach himself to Chef Slowick in a way and kind of, I guess, leech on it.
We'll have that kind of control and that sense of gravitas, right?
Yeah, and I think he's probably got to a point in life where he's realized he'd never have that. So then, just to be around it and to be part of that organism is what can feed that part of his ego, maybe.
In honor of Tyler, who's a know-it-all foodie, what is something that the two of you both get Tyler-like about, where you have kind of, an encyclopedic level of knowledge or something, or you just can't contain your enthusiasm for that thing?
Things like plant names, like the bird of paradise being a satio and things like that. I think I really like that sort of random knowledge.
Yeah, Harry Potter, cats. Mad Max, honestly. I was a big Mad Max fan, so Mad Max. Recently, season 4 of Stranger Things, I went so hard on that. I've been in Australia by myself with my cat for a very long time, and I attached myself to Stranger Things 4, hardcore. I'm in Steve. Steve is the best written cat. I love Steve.
Also Succession, which is a big part of us wanting to do this, because Mark Mylod, who directed this, directed a lot of Succession. I think all of us were such big fans of that show and how he created the dynamic for all of those characters, that it was exciting to imagine him bringing all these characters to life.
You said something the other day that I loved because it's so true. The theme music of Succession is so good. I never skip past it. We just every time it's just like, yes,
I'm surprised they haven't like done a club remix of it yet.
I'm sure they have. We should
So it
play
was a real achievement.
We should play it quietly and like freak Mark out with it. Just like slowly let it build and
All right, you gave me the excuse, Anya. I'm going to jump to a Furiosa question next, and I'm going to do it this way because, Nick, I have a feeling you've been asked if you ever gave her any advice for jumping into a Mad Max film. So I'm going to flip it around like that right now. Anya, having just finished filming Furiosa, what advice would you give to another actor out there who might jump into a really intense George Miller Mad Max movie? And then, Nick, I want you to grade her advice. Is it sound?
it's what I did. Get a cat. Like just have a companion, have somebody that's gonna be with you on it. It's the universe is so large that I was quite alone a lot of the time, and I think my cat like definitely helped me out in that situation. But also, like, if you're not emotionally responsible enough to take care of an animal, don't get a cat. Nick, Reiss?
Sound advice.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Get a cat.
Nick, if you said anything other than that, I would be judging you. Cats are always the absolute best answer to every stressor. Just for fun here, what is the most recent food photo you've taken?
I made a brown butter loaf, and I took a photo of it.
He started baking. Like, the man is a baker.
I nearly wore my little baking hat.
Food. Genuinely, honestly, the last picture that I have of food is everyone from this film is saved in my phone in their final outfit that you see them in, and that is the last picture that I have in my phone. Is that a spoiler? Is that okay? Yes, that's okay. Great.
This is real, isn't it?
What the hell is going on?
John, my first question is for you. I know your character in the movie goes unnamed with purpose, but as the actor playing him, do you have to know his name? Is that necessary for you to kind of fully tap into and understand who he is?
Yes, absolutely. I had to know a name. I had to have a backstory. I mean, for Aimee and I to be able to improvise, we talked a lot about our backstory. We did all that method stuff so that, you know, it'll show on screen. I mean, some of it leaks in, but we got to know who we are. Otherwise, we just like generic people, and hopefully that's not what we did.
Not at all. All right, a two-part follow-up to that then. Can you each share something that's like a big, broad stroke backstory idea that you had to come up with for yourselves? But then also, what's like a teeny tiny detail? Because I just had someone recently tell me, like, it's even good just to know if your character runs late in order to make them feel like a whole person.
That's true, it's true.
So what's like a big thing and then a tiny thing that might seem trivial but was important to you?
Well, we talked a lot about, like, you know, how the power dynamic, how like Felicity's technically his assistant, but she kind of has more power, you know what I mean? Her mother is like the head of a studio, and he's sort of like, you know,
Washed up action star.
And so in a way, it's like, you know, who's got the real currency here, as far as broad strokes goes. And then what else? I mean, I guess like the keys to the house. Which was, she had the keys to
the credit card. It was a credit card. Under her name.
Yeah, right. The keys to his house in LA, his house in his apartment in New York, and his other apartment in New York that his wife didn't know about. So like little things like that.
Yeah,
that was
little
really,
things. That
well,
was
the big
we were
things are, like,
so
helpful.
specific that goes to showing your work that you're doing. I based my character on. I mean, obviously, I'm not a washed-up action star because I was never an action star. So, but I've been in a lot of action movies with action stars that became washed up. So I had a lot of, you know, people in mind when I created the character, and specifically the hair. You know, I was like trying to do like Steven Seagal. He's got these hair issues.
Not hair issues.
Like they paint his scalp, and so I was trying to do that little detail.
Did they put your scalp?
They painted. Yeah. I was trying to be like him. Yeah.
You know what's crazy is that, you know, John obviously like based him on, you know, and he has some despicable, like the characters has despicable characteristics. But I felt
you
like
better stop day drinking.
I know. I wish.
Despicable
character. But I do feel like you played him with so much heart. Still, like I felt so bad for, you know, you're like, do I have any friends? Like, you know, you just can't help but have heart, and that's what's beautiful. Why he's such a great actor. But But yeah, I would say that the power dynamic we talked about a lot.
I like that in the movie. A lot of these characters have very questionable qualities, but I don't know, like the drive and what they're about always feels pure and real. And that gives you that feeling where they need to get what they deserve, but you're also engaged watching them try to navigate the situation. So I know there was a whole lot of improv happening on this set. And I've heard from a few people that you two were kind of like the improv MVPs. So
Yeah, baby.
even being that good and having had all your own experience improving, is there anything that you two saw the other do that made you stop and say like, wow, I've never tried that before, and now you want to try it on a future project?
Yeah, well, sorry, I keep hogging, but I have to say the thing about you. Like, you improv also, I always thought improv was about comedy, but you improv a lot of really heartfelt things too. And like, you have like, you know what I mean? Like, serious improv. And I've never seen that before, and that's something I would like to bring to
that's interesting, because I learned that from the Method.
Yeah.
We used to do a lot of very serious improv.
Yeah.
And then I was part of an improv comedy troupe.
Right.
So I know how to mix the two, and I like to mix the two. I feel like when I started doing my one-man shows, comedy in America was kind of glib and kind of shallow, and I tried to bring like a Latin sort of sensibility, which was very emotional, much more sexual.
Yeah.
And I started a certain kind of comedy in America. I feel like I could take credit for that.
Take it.
Yeah.
Well, yours were the first one-man shows that I saw, one-person shows that I saw that actually had like a lot of heartbreak and a lot of vulnerability, and it wasn't just a stand-up. I remember like watching it and thinking, oh, I'm going to watch a stand-up, but it was actually like a very beautiful story, it's a play.
Yeah, and that's how Aimee won the role too, because when she did her improv against the other two contestants for the role, she brought humor, edge, she was on plot and character, and a lot of emotion. And then Mark Mylod said, that's the one I need. We need her. Only her. I love her.
Oh.
I could hear him saying that. So we often focus on, the scenes that you're in and that you're like dead center in the frame and you're the focus of the material. But because of the way you film this, you're essentially in the background nonstop. So is that a challenging muscle to constantly be flexing and never be able to be turned off?
You're very astute. I got to say that because not people notice that.
Yeah.
But it's a challenge. I mean, it's humbling because you're the center of attention, and all of a sudden you're back to being background.
Yeah.
And I remember being background.
Same.
And you're
like,
like you still trying to cheat looks so people can see you. But in this way, you don't have to cheat because eventually the camera's going to come to you.
But it actually feels a lot like being on stage, like being in a play, when there's, if someone's looking over at you, you better be doing something interesting, or you better be like engaged. Otherwise, also, you're going to bore yourself to death. Like, you have to stay, but it is exhausting in that, you're
always on. You're on 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
And it's shot in sequence, which was a privilege.
Total.
And helped you a lot, but also you had to stay in sequence, in character, always 12 hours a day. It was a lot. It was exhausting, but beautiful, obviously.
And I think, No,
go for it.
That it was, you'd set the tone, like the veteran actors, the people that like, you're like, oh my God, John Leguizamo, oh my God, Ralph Fiennes, like they set the tone and they're doing that. Ralph was in the background a lot.
Always. Yeah.
A lot. And,
and he was present
every time. So it inspires you to be like, it comes from the top.
Right, because I've worked with actors who
don't show up for your coverage even.
They don't show up for your coverage. They sent their stunt double. And you're
funny.
like, oh my God, I'm acting with somebody who can't act.
Right.
Now it's even going to be more difficult, twice as hard.
Right.
This is basically like an acting masterclass. I'm fascinated by the way you film this movie. Before they kick me out of here, a somewhat sillier question. Can you each tell me the most recent food photo you've taken?
Oh, photo?
Oh, wow, food photo. I was in Greece with my kids over the summer.
No problem. Not bragging. That's nice though.
And I got squid ink all over my teeth because I love squid ink, and my daughter ate it too, so two of us had our lips and teeth were black, and then we took a picture of ourselves going.
Well, okay. This is like slightly less bougie, but not really. I bought this. Like, there's this new thing in LA. It's like a cookie subscription. It's ridiculous.
Cookie subscription?
Listen,
How do you
don't
keep
tell
so
me
thin and eating cookies like that?
Listen, I will work out. But here's what happened. So I bought one, and I thought it was a cookie subscription. It's not. You have to get on a waiting list, and they're like $150. And I thought this was going to be a year-long cookie subscription. I got one box of 12 cookies, and then I was like, the next month I was like, where's my cookie? But I thought it was like a wine of the month, called like a cookie of the month.
Yeah.
No, that was a one-time thing. So you better believe I took photos of every single cookie.
And was it amazing?
It was amazing, but $150 divided by 12 is what?
Oh shoot!
I don't know. I'm an actor. I don't know, but it was too much for a cookie.
I feel
Whatever
like
it was, it's
my response,
expensive.
but I'm like tempted to get those cookies now.
It's
I'm kinda
called the
curious.
Last Crumb.
Last crumb.
If you're in LA, I think you probably get it everywhere because they come like
They ship it.
Yeah, they ship
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's delicious, but like you can go to Levain. Like
Yeah,
that's
Levain is the
delicious.
best cookie in the
best
world.
cookie in the
Yeah.
world, yeah.
Here we are family. We harvest, we ferment, we gel.
They gel.
We gel.
So I was reading about how it was a little bit of a challenge because there was so little on the page about Elsa initially. So how far do you have to push it in terms of creating your own backstory and filling in some of those gaps to have like a full feeling life for this character?
Well, you know, it's different for every project. I don't mind doing that. I love coming up with backstory for characters if there's not one already there on the page and not, you know, some big monologue where the character gets to talk about some major event in her life. So I don't mind it when, you know, there's not that big monologue. I relish it. I happened to be in Portland, Oregon at the time filming another movie, and I just drew inspiration from everybody that I saw, all the funky people in Portland, Oregon, and I brought up some ideas to Mark because I wanted the character to look a certain way, and we had a little back and forth and discussion about it. And that's really fun for me. I think that's part of the creative process, and Mark Mylod is so intelligent and sensitive. I feel like I could talk to him about anything, and that's really all you're hoping for with a movie experience.
Can I ask you to elaborate on the character's look? Is there any specific thing that you wanted her to have that was purely your own choice and now we can see it in the finished film?
Yeah, I wanted her to, I mean, pretty much what you see in the film is kind of what I wanted. I mean, maybe, you know, we compromised a little bit on the eyebrows. I was picturing shaving my eyebrows and we ended up bleaching my eyebrows. So, you know.
Might be easier for after filming the menu, so it might have been a smarter move there. Did you ever talk much about how Chef Slowik and Elsa kind of came to be and came to work together?
Yeah, we did come up with something. There was a scene that I just realized that we shot that's not in the movie, and there's quite a bit of information there, not about Elsa, but about Chef. And so I think I used the information from that scene to dream up a backstory for my character. And that's one of the funny things about films, why I enjoy watching them after we're done working with it, because you never know what's going to be in the final edit. And it's interesting. It's almost just as interesting what they leave out of the movie as they do as what's left in the movie.
It's always exciting to me when I feel like I've had a full experience, but I get obsessed with thinking about the deeper layers that maybe weren't there after the fact. It's a way for me to take the movie with me and engage more. And I love that quality of this one.
Yeah, it's definitely a movie that you can do multiple viewings of.
Can guarantee you many, many more viewings will happen for me. What kind of conversations did you have with Ralph and Mark about the Elsa Chef dynamic, especially in terms of, you know, when and how she steps up and takes control, but also knows when to let Chef take center stage, because it felt like a really effortless and seamless dance to me.
Yeah, well, I naturally, I found it very natural, that relationship between Elsa and Chef. I, in real life, admire Ralph Fiennes tremendously. And so it was easy for me to just take that admiration and transfer it to my character. Ralph is an actor who loves other actors, and I felt that he was there to take care of all of us. And there was one moment in particular in the script where I just couldn't make sense of it. And he happened to be there with me when I was talking to Mark, and I just felt like he was really there on my side and helping me ask that question, help us make sense of this, And I just really appreciated that, where he wasn't just solely interested in his own character and his own experience. He was really wanting the film as a whole to succeed, and for all of the actors to feel like they were fulfilled, not only in their experience, but also fulfilling the character to its, utmost potential.
Sounds like a dream scene partner and
Yeah.
collaborator right there. I love it. We spoke a little bit about the costume, but what about in terms of Elsa's, specific mannerisms and the way she carries herself, and also the tone of voice that she uses? Are there any specifics that were really important to you to kind of always have in your mind whenever you were, bringing her to screen with that commanding presence?
I think the character slowly came together as bits of information came in. When I first read it, I wasn't sure how to play the character. Even when we did our table read, I didn't know. I was just kind of plainly saying the words because I didn't know of which way she would fall. And it wasn't until the hair and makeup and the costume came together, and then once I saw myself on the set and what that looked like. And I was also waiting to see what Ralph was going to do with the character, because I felt like Elsa would try to emulate a lot of what Chef was doing, because she admires him, and I think anytime you admire somebody, you may consciously or unconsciously just end up picking up certain physical habits or qualities.
Definitely wanted to bring up the improv, because I know you said you don't think of yourself as the best improviser, but there is a good deal of it in this film, and I'm sure you were wonderful doing it. So was there any particular moment that you could remember where you were improvising, you absolutely crushed it, and you stopped and you said to yourself, like, damn, I'm really proud of what I just did?
No, I would never stop and say, damn, girl.
In your head, at least.
No, I'm like my own biggest critic. I'm always thinking like that I could do better at something. So I don't think I ever had that moment. It was more of me appreciating what other people were doing. I was like, yeah, he crushed it, or she crushed it. It was more of that.
Fair enough. I'll shout it out during my next screening of the menu. I'll leave you with this one. What is the most recent food photo you've taken?
Ooh, probably something with my daughter. It's probably just like all over her face.
This is what you're paying for.
Get out of my way.
It's all part of the menu.
So I want to start with your ensemble here, and I'd love the opportunity to talk about the casting process for every single person in this film, but to narrow it down a little, can you tell me which role was the easiest to cast, but then also which one was the toughest to find the perfect fit?
Which character was the easiest? I suppose really Ralph Fiennes, because both myself and Will and Seth, the writers, we had him in our heads, right from the start, literally from writing the script, and certainly once I came aboard and the work I was doing with them. And my first meeting, Zoom meeting with Ralph just backed that up, really. We had one of those lovely, I see him that way as well. Neither of us wanted a big movie baddie. We both saw Chef Slowick as really an artist in pain and consumed with self-loathing for all the choices he's made, and through the corrosion of his corrosive nature of his ego. So that was, and that's where we started really. And once we had Ralph, we built out from there, and it was a lovely process from that. I think probably the hardest role was Elsa, our maitre d', played brilliantly by Hong Chau, specifically because we'd written the character as a tall Scandinavian, which Hong Chau is not. So I took quite a few meetings on there, and it was trying instinctively to find an actor who I thought could make this brilliant Elsa character right on the edge and kind of credibility. There's an absurdist element to her, but also be completely credible. And Hong is able to do that. She can, if you watch Downsizing and the way she walks the line there, she brings such heart and soul and specificity to Elsa that I find myself actually really rooting for her.
I can't imagine, like everyone in this movie, I can't imagine anyone else better for that role, but that role just feels so uniquely her. I love it. I have to bring up Succession because Turnhaven in particular is just seared in my brain for life. So it was making me wonder, is there anything about filming the dinner sequence in that particular episode that you found coming in handy while tackling the menu?
Oh yes, yeah. The Turnhaven episode in season 2 of Succession was where actually Will Tracy, the co-writer of the script, and I first met. Will came aboard in season 2, and we were thrown together as I directed that episode. And 80% of the episode, as you know, was a dinner party, a particularly tense dinner party. And I wanted I'm a huge fan of Robert Altman's way of working, particularly with an ensemble cast. So I took a leaf out of his book, and everybody was mic'd all the time, and the camera was roving everywhere and anywhere at any time, so the actors all had to be just present and actually improvising and talking over each other, and that somewhat inadvertently became a dress rehearsal for how we worked on the menu together.
I also heard that you shot the menu in sequence, which is something that you don't usually get the luxury of doing while making a film. So can you tell me why it felt necessary to shoot the film that way? But then also maybe what's a production challenge that comes up when you decide to do that? And then how did you overcome it?
The shooting chronologically for me is huge, specifically and especially on a project like this where the whole ensemble cast are going on such a journey from start to finish. In our weeks of rehearsal, I don't like to stand up and rehearse with the actors, and I'm always worried about losing a lovely spontaneous moment and never being able to recapture it. But we did talk a lot. We just sat around and talked about different scenes and different elements of the satire that interested us. And as such, and out of that, we all kind of tune in to be making the same film. But I gave them some homework and asked them to watch Buñuel's film, The Exterminating Angel, this brilliant kind of surrealist satire from 1962. And what I took from that film and wanted to share with the cast was this dawning sense of culpability that the guests, and in our case our diners, have as they go through the evening in that story. And we were able to, because I wanted chefs' words and chefs' actions to gradually peel back the vanities of our diners. The pace at which that was done, by being able to shoot chronologically, we could pace that ride together, so we all end up at the same place towards the end of the film when everyone's paying their bills. So that was incredibly important. The trickiness of shooting chronologically is really, one is able to do that because so much of the film is set in the one space, a space that we built and created. But then, of course, there's inherent cinematic challenges to making sure that's a dynamic cinematic space and not just something that feels claustrophobic in the wrong way and becomes tiresome. For that, I enlisted, first of all, looking at the work of Bong Ho in Parasite, which weaponizes the architecture so brilliantly and keeps that space so dynamic. And we, working with our brilliant productions designer Ethan Todman, we created this jewel box of this rustic modernism in the restaurant, but made sure that open plan kitchen between the dining room and the kitchen meant that when you were immersed with the diners and the camera there, as I hope the audience would feel, that you can always feel visually the presence of those cooks, the threat of them just upstage, however soft focus that may be. And when you flip 180 degrees from that, you look out this beautiful asymmetric window out to the freedom beyond and this gorgeous ocean, that freedom that they can't quite reach through that thick impenetrable glass. And as the sun goes down, of course, that just makes, that puts more pressure. It's like focusing a spotlight on the characters and just ratchets up the tension. And from that tension, of course, comes the release of the comedy. And so actually we took what could have been actually a tricky, mundane space and actually tried to make it really, really dynamic.
All beautifully captured by Peter Deming, who I'm a very big fan of. I'm a major Scream junkie, obviously. So I love his work quite a bit. They are going to kick me out soon, so I will wrap with this one. What is the most recent food photo you've taken?
The most recent food photo I've taken. I do know what it was. He says annoyingly laughing to himself. The most recent food photo I took was when I made rice and beans a couple of months ago. It's a meal that my wife Amy Westcott makes and I love it, and she was away shooting, so I tried to make it and I made such a hash of it that I actually photographed it ironically and just how bad it was and sent it to her.
We now offer you a 45-second head start. Okay, 45 seconds starts now.
First, I want to ask you guys about formulating the perfect guest list for the diners at Hawthorne. Was it always this group of characters from the very beginning, or did you ever run into the kind of situation where there was a last-minute addition, a character you wanted to squeeze in and couldn't, something like that?
That's a good question.
It was always this group of people.
Kind of was, yeah. I think we started a place of just. I think we're always thinking comedically and what we can get out of a situation. So I think we were thinking, when you go to a place like this, who are the archetypes that you usually see in a room like this? There's always that like older couple who look like they have not said one word to each other the entire night, and you're thinking like, what's going on in their marriage? There's always like the guys who are on the broy business dinner on the expense account. Right. There's the super annoying foodie people who might be there, who have watched every episode of whatever, and this is their singular fixation. So I think just in terms of and also this world of kind of celebrities who consider themselves foodies, right? And so I think we were trying to find where can we bring satire, and so I think it started with those characters, and it didn't really
never deviated much.
I think we had the one addition would maybe be the chef's mother, who has I think only one line of dialogue in the film, but that was sort of our wild card who maybe was thrown in a little bit later.
Yeah, and as a destabilizing thing for essentially the audience, because we're walking into this restaurant along with everyone else, and I think everyone's like, what oh, okay. And yeah, but it was always those people.
Rock solid place to start, and then ultimately it definitely panned out for the better in the final film. How about the Hawthorne staff now? Were there any specific real world inspirations that you modeled kind of how they operate off of?
Yeah, I think there were a lot of real world models. I mean, there's no one who's quite him, obviously, and no one who operates at that level of seeking recrimination from their customers. But
I mean, they might secretly, but they haven't in real life done it, because we would have read about it.
But in terms of the cuisine, yes, it leans towards kind of a combination of sort of foraged, hyper-local, obviously in this case, hyper-local, because it's all coming from the island, with a very modernist kind of what used to be called molecular kind of focus. And so it's a combination, I guess, of like a Dan Barber at Stone Barns, where it's like, they run the whole farm and they tell you exactly basically what the pig's name was and when they harvested that beet that you're eating. Combination of that, and then something like Grant Ackison's restaurant Alinea in Chicago, which is this sort of like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory modernist wonderland of showstoppers.
Yeah.
And so that was, in terms of like the style of the food in the restaurant, those were the touch points.
Okay. Going back to how they all operate, is there any kind of real world truth in terms of what it takes to keep an operation like that up and running? Something a bit broader that you wanted to make sure came through in how they operated.
Oh.
But then also, is there like a teeny tiny detail, something that isn't necessarily even like spoken about or focused in a frame, but you knew was important to include in there just to like fill out the world a little?
Yeah.
Well, I'll answer the first part of your question, I think, is that intensity and the exhaustion that goes into living this life is very much something that because of the two of us, Will's more of a foodie than I am, but that pursuit of excellence at this place is very real. And any, I think, artist who wants to be great eventually at some point has to just go down the rabbit hole and focus on this thing entirely. And so we are seeing this artist and all of his people who look up to him, we're seeing them almost at the end of the rabbit hole of what the hell that he has brought on them.
Because in a way, there's nowhere else to go with a restaurant like that. Once you reach that level of exclusivity and also that level of acclaim, it's not like there's another level beyond that. All you can do is maintain consistency. And it's not very fruitful sometimes creatively, because we just have to keep doing it at this level for forever. And then also it's not especially lucrative. I mean, restaurants like that are those really high-end restaurants, we think of them as being, they charge so much money, they're just ripping you off. But really, I mean, they have such big kitchens, so they have a huge staff. They don't have a bar, which is how most restaurants make their money. And also they're bringing in ingredients sometimes that are of such rare quality that their overhead is just insane. So they kind of have to charge those prices, and they're usually barely breaking even. So it really is kind of a losing game in a way. It just has to, the only thing that sustains you is passion.
Right.
And if the passion runs out, then you're in big trouble, right?
Yeah. What was the second?
In terms of
Like
little
a
details.
teeny tiny detail.
Yeah, we tried. I think we tried to sneak in little things that you might not see in other food movies, like even down to little things. At the end of the movie, he says we're on a no-tip system, which is a lot of restaurants at that level of exclusivity. They work on a ticket system where you prepay and there's no tips. And also, they will sometimes tell you who they partner with for their bread. So we mentioned in the breadless bread course that they've partnered with the Tehachapi Grain Project to
gift bag.
Yes,
gift bag at the end. The granola.
Yeah,
getting a little bit of granola.
Always a little bit of granola.
Yeah.
I feel like no bread at a restaurant is legitimately my worst nightmare.
Exactly. And it's absolutely always the best part of every meal is bread. Yes.
Yeah, that like really got me down to my core. You have an incredible ensemble here. I know they got the opportunity to improvise quite a bit, and you have a great script too, but is there anything anybody did with what you wrote that just really caught you by surprise and made you stop and say like, wow, that quality is even stronger in a character that we wrote now?
I'm not trying to just be a company man here. I would say everything that they did, and we had such a smart group of actors, and Will and I happened to be lucky. We were there on set for the entire shooting of the movie, and we would leave every day, and we would say like, this is the best group of people to do this movie, because they were so smart, and they knew that they got the tone immediately. And so the only thing left to do was, from take after take, make it better, better, and better and better. I will say, like, to watch Nick Hoult's performance, it's really perfectly calibrated by the time he's clearly the biggest psychopath in the room. But he doesn't start there. And I think it's quite beautiful. And I think the way, Rafe is fantastic, but also the way Anya plays it, so subtle and in her face. She really anchors the movie. And without her, I think the movie would just fly away to nothing. So, yeah.
If I could keep you guys here all day, I would want to highlight every single one of them, because they are all just like absolutely pitch perfect in those roles, and also together too. I'll warn you with this question because it demands some on-the-spot creativity. Okay. Let's say you get to make another The Menu movie, but all the patrons have to be characters from the movie or TV ensemble of your choice. What ensemble do you pick, and which of the bunch do you think would be the most insufferable diner?
I know it. I know what it is.
You say it.
It's Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. Not because I want to put them through hell, because I want to get that group of people, and I want to be in a room with them, and that's it. I mean, that's my dream.
I'm always happy to think about that show.
Yeah, so there you go. That's it. We get them all. We get the big reunion dinner at Hawthorne. Yeah,
it's the movie everyone's been waiting for.
That's mine. Yeah.
I mean, I would watch it. All right. Here's another one. You tackle the restaurant industry in this particular film, but if you got the opportunity to make, I don't know, I guess I'll call it The Menu spiritual sequel and satirize another industry out there, what industry would you choose and why?
That one might forbid.
Yeah, I feel like we shouldn't say that because if we might do it.
For that reason, I'm fine with you keeping your answer to yourself. I'll let you off the hook with that one. I'll leave you with this though.
Great question though. Thank you.
That is a good question.
What is the most recent food photo you've both taken?
Let's find out. It was probably, quite sadly, something that I cooked and was trying to show off to someone, like, look what I made.
I know what mine is. Do you want me to say what you've searched or?
Yes. Oh, I have one.
Okay, great.
This is from a restaurant in near where near New Jersey where I live. It's called Canal House, and this was the beef bourguignon. You probably can't see this. That they made. It was very, very good and very, very classic, and I loved it. I took a photo of it.
And this is the difference between the two of us. And this is not. This is real. It was a double Whopper with cheese and no onions that I took a picture of and sent to my friend Jesse.